AI is just that. I mean, it's another technology and
Hmm.
it's supposed to be a tool. And a lot of people think it's going to replace us, but in reality, I
Yeah.
don't believe that's the case. I think that
Yeah.
people need to know how to use AI
Hmm.
in order for it to actually be helpful rather than being something that is actually going to be a replacement. If
Okay.
you enjoy solving a problem and that's your goal, you're going to do amazing
Hmm.
at being a UX designer.
Joining me today is Lane Burris, and he is a UX designer. So, Lane, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So, let's go ahead and get started. Can you explain what a UX designer does?
Yeah, so I personally I believe that it's kind of a mixed bag of a lot of things. You
Okay.
become a jack of all trades. Um, at least for myself, I started out as a UX designer mainly because I had a background of development, so software
Okay.
design or software development, and from there, I kind of pushed myself into UX from my
Hmm.
or in my current role at my current company, and sold myself as someone that could potentially become into this.
Yeah.
And a designer essentially is one that's able to do a lot of things, such as research or being able to um, design the front end of an application,
Mm.
and at the same time, just mainly focus on the problem. If you have a problem statement at hand, that's what you're going to be working on the whole time. And if you don't understand it, you're not going to be able to actually do great for your users.
Yeah. And what made you want to switch in your career path and get into UX design?
Yeah, so UX design is something I never really knew about. It
Hmm.
was a journey that I was trying to figure out. I did not really like software development. A lot of
Okay.
people that do, I mean, good for you. It's not for everybody, but I definitely do appreciate those who are in it. But for me, I just knew that I was more of a creative thinker. That's the
Okay.
side of my brain that just works naturally.
Hmm.
The logical side takes a lot more patience and a lot more pushing. And so
Hmm.
it actually, I started realizing that there's a lot of my day to day that was just draining. And
Mm.
so, as a developer, you're constantly thinking logically, which I was fine with for a little bit, but
Right.
there's like not much creativity for me at least. So I needed to find a different path that was going to be one mentally stable for myself, and then two that was going to make me feel a little bit more passionate about what I did, and that's where I landed where I'm at right now.
Okay, amazing. So now you're in UX design, but what parts of your job are the most exciting or the most interesting to you?
Yeah, my mentor actually asked me this the other day. I told him it was mainly the collaboration. I
Okay.
love that factor of being able to talk with people, being able to
Mm.
interact. As a developer, I wasn't able to do that as much.
Right.
But now I'm able to gather requirements. I'm able to talk with the stakeholders and
Mm.
just people that really give you true feedback of how your designs are or how your work is actually improving or not improving.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I like knowing if I'm doing something good. And
Yeah.
so it puts me in a direction that I actually want to be heading. And so as a developer, you're kind of heads down, just
Mm.
cracking at the keyboard the whole time. And
Right.
so yeah, so I really love being able to collaborate with other people,
Hmm.
my developers especially, talk with them all the time. I love hearing their feedback, and sometimes
Yeah.
even today, for example, they told me that something was great, and then there's another part that was like, you need to take that out. I was like, all right, sounds great. So, um, yeah, so you're receiving feedback all the time, but
Yeah.
even then, welcoming it is one of the greatest parts also. And then the last part is just the designing itself. I
Yeah.
truly enjoy doing that. It's really fun. I like seeing it come from scratch to life, and
Hmm.
it's just really cool to see all that progression.
Yeah. And now on the flip side, are there any parts of the job that you think are harder, emotionally challenging, or maybe just boring?
Yeah, fair question. Um, I would say that boring wise, it's really difficult to be a sole designer. I'm the only
Okay.
designer in my whole company,
Wow.
and it's it's cool because you're learning all the time, but it's also not cool because you're learning all the time. So it gets really tiring sometimes. And
Yeah.
so like I mentioned before, is that with development, you're constantly having to think on the
Hmm.
logical side of things, but that's where my draining side was for that. For this one though, it's because I'm learning so much. And I
Okay.
see the process constantly happening, and you have to stay on top of the trends, the way that technology changes, the way that um, making sure that you understand your company in itself and what it is that you have to do there.
Right.
I like all those things, but also it's just being by yourself. I don't really like that part. And
Okay.
sometimes you're a generalist and you have to be the only
Yeah.
one that's in there. So
Yeah.
it's the biggest thing.
And so what are some of the ways that you keep up with those trends and developments of the field and of UX design?
Yeah, so you had mentioned that you found me on LinkedIn. So
Mhm.
that's a huge part of my resourcing, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
if you looked at my LinkedIn profile, there's like a ton of people that are on there that I just
Hmm.
follow. And
Okay.
I enjoy like following new people a lot because it helps me to see like different approaches to how I can actually make my
Right.
designs better, how I can get advice or feedback, and just staying in the loop of a lot of things that
Hmm.
are like that. A lot of people, they want to share their feedback and even just their advice. A lot of
Right.
people have wisdom in years, like
Hmm.
easily 10 or 15 years, and I'm just this little fish in the pond. So I'm taking in everything that I can, and sometimes I jump in like during my little breaks during the day. I jump on LinkedIn just so that way I can like
Yeah.
try to just stay on top of the trends, that whether it be AI or whether it be
Yeah.
SEO, like search engine optimization,
Yeah.
or marketing or something like that. Like I said, I'm a generalist, so I have to know like a lot of things.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think that people might underestimate or overestimate about your job?
Uh, Underestimate is that it's all about just making things pretty. And
Mm,
in reality, that's not the case.
okay.
There's a lot of research, there's a lot of asking questions, there's a lot of investigating about the user.
Mhm.
You're doing a lot of preliminary work in order to actually make a foundation for your project. And then when it comes to like the actual designing side, like you have
Mhm.
to uh there's something called wireframing that you have to do,
Okay.
and that's like the initial stage of designing, and then you
Mm,
transition into prototyping. And so
okay.
making things a little bit easier, you can click on it, you can make the users see the way that you're actually anticipating the
Right.
application to look. So those types of things I feel like a lot of times are underestimated.
Okay.
It was for me at least. And so when I came into it, I was like, oh wow, this is a lot. Um, Overestimating, I would probably say, honestly, I don't know. I think it would probably be more of that people don't um, they think that they can just hand off things.
Okay.
And so whenever it comes to their work, a lot of times they think they have to spend a lot more time inside of their bubble of designing, but in
Mhm.
reality, that's not always the case. So they overestimate a lot of, okay, I need to put a lot of time in designing. That's what it's going to be,
Right.
most of my time. And it's like, well, not really. So I feel like they kind of go hand in hand, really.
Yeah. Okay, so now going into what this field looks like, what are some of the niches that people can choose to specialize in within UX design?
Yeah. So I might kind of go back to what it is that you had done before on a previous
Mhm.
episode. I actually looked at your UX
Oh,
research
cool.
episode. Yeah, just wanted to see what it
Cool.
was like. And
Yeah.
the lady that was speaking on there had mentioned that there's a lot of different niches, and
Mhm.
one of them is UX research, obviously. And
Right.
what that entails is just a lot of research,
Mhm.
questions and questionnaires and such. For me, it's I would say UX design is one of them. Obviously, it's what I'm in, and then UI design, which is just
Mm,
like the elements that you have on the page.
okay.
Um, so my role itself is like actually the flow of everything.
Okay.
And then there's you can specialize in a lot of things also though. So
Mhm.
that's also another issue that I think that's in some of our field. So my role itself, even though it says UX designer, there's a lot of different titles for it. Product designer,
Okay.
UX designer, UX UI designer, UI designer.
Okay.
I even saw this on LinkedIn today, a graphic
Hmm.
designer. It's not really a UX designer.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and then so I'd say product designer is also another one that's kind of like a
Okay.
big niche that people can get into. Or product
Okay.
management, that's another one too. So,
Okay.
mhm.
Okay. And who are some of the biggest employers of the UX field?
Oh boy. I would say there's a lot of them, to be honest.
Hmm.
I know that I know that Chase Bank, so like
Hmm.
JP Morgan, that's like a big company to get into.
Yeah.
I live in Texas, and so USAA is another really big one.
Okay.
But that's
Yeah.
just a big company to get into and help yourself in.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that Airbnb is one,
Mm,
Amazon, and I would say probably even some of the stores like Target, for example. Like I
right.
think that those are also big ones. And then there's a lot of like little smaller companies that gravitate towards like being a contractor or something like an
Hmm.
LLC. A lot of times people will do a lot of those and
Okay.
startups and trying to get more involved in that.
Right.
And so I feel like a lot of times people that jump into UX design,
Hmm.
they're always looking at startups as their main source to jump into
Hmm.
it. But in
Yeah.
reality, personally, I would say that it would be best to jump into a company first, mainly because you can actually have more of a solid grounding of what it is that you're going to
Okay.
be learning. And
Okay.
unless you're in my position, then there's like a sole designer issue, and then this is how it goes.
Okay, so now correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
basically any company that has an app needs a UX designer? Question mark.
Good question mark. Um, I would say yes. The
Okay.
reason being is because if you have an application
Hmm.
and you are not having a designer in there, a lot of times if you have just a development team and they're creating stuff, they're going to be solely focusing on solutioning. And the
Okay.
reason, and I'll put a little caveat in there. The only reason why I can say that is because I used to be a software developer. If I
Right.
wasn't beforehand, then I wouldn't be able to say that.
Okay, perfect. And so now from my research, it looks like the average income for a UX designer in the US is about $80,000 a year. From your experience, do you think that that's accurate? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I actually don't mind sharing mine if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So I make over 100. Um,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and I think my experience actually plays a lot into that. So like with me
Okay.
having my background and then also um like I was again for me I was able to sell myself and into
Mhm.
my company, but I think being able to know that there's a desire within a company to have that,
Right.
especially if it's a smaller company, they're willing to pay for
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But I would say that 80 is probably a good starting place for a lot of junior developer designers.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about how there's always just different perspectives on LinkedIn and on all these social media platforms, but
Yeah.
how do you see UX design just evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So um, AI is a huge one.
Hmm.
Not sure how much you're into under or knowing about AI, but I mean, you have ChatGPT now. You have
Right.
UI Wizard. Well,
Hmm.
it's weird spelling, but um, and then you have what is it? Canva is another one. Like you
Right.
have all these other applications that are coming out.
Hmm.
And I think just even Maze, for example, that's another one too. All
Hmm.
these applications that are coming out, they they need people that know AI. And the reason being
Okay.
is because everyone's trying to stay ahead of the trend of AI.
Right.
And like I mentioned earlier, the trends when it comes to just being on top of them. If you aren't with them, then they're going to pass you up. And
Right.
a lot of times AI is just that. I mean, it's another technology and
Hmm.
it's supposed to be a tool. And a lot of people think it's going to replace us, but in reality, I
Yeah.
don't believe that's the case. I think that
Yeah.
people need to know how to use AI
Hmm.
in order for it to actually be helpful rather than being something that is actually going to be replacement.
Yeah, completely agree. So now going into your daily work and what your day-to-day basis looks like. So what's your schedule like and what tasks do you see that you spend the majority of your day doing?
So most of my day, um, and honestly, I would even show you it. But most of my day is, funny enough, in Figma, which is
Okay.
a designing tool that
Hmm.
it's pretty well known right now within the community. And then you have FigJam as well, which is a
Okay.
sister or a child component of Figma.
Hmm.
And I work very heavily in those every single day.
Okay.
Personally, I enjoy that because I don't have to spread
Hmm.
myself too thin on different applications.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's pretty much what my day is in and out. And even after this, I'm gonna jump on it. So, but yeah, I'm working in Figma. I'm working in FigJam. I'm designing in Figma. I'm using FigJam for a lot of like
Hmm.
user flows and flow charts, and
Okay.
that's what I was doing right before this. And then a lot of workshops, so
Fun.
that way I can bring the stakeholders in and help them to understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish,
Hmm.
help them be on the same page with everybody, understand the problem statement that's at hand,
Yeah.
um, and just do all these things. And a lot of that is dealt with in FigJam. At
Okay.
least for myself, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And is your job remote? Do you have to be in the office from 9 to 5? Do you work flexible hours? What does that part of your schedule look like?
The answer is yes. Um, it's a mixed bag, honestly. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I'm working sorry, no, I'm working in the office, so I'm hybrid,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I also do a lot of remote work because my manager is in Louisiana, and so
Mm,
most of the time, as long as I'm working
hmm.
and he's able to keep track of how I'm doing stuff,
Right.
I don't think he really cares, to be honest.
Yeah.
So.
He's not even there.
Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
other week, I was working in Colorado. Like, so that was totally fine. I loved it.
That's fun.
I
Yeah.
know.
So are you able to leave all of your work in your work day hours, or do you see that you have to take some work home?
Uh, the answer again is yes. Or it depends.
Okay.
Um, I I would say that you can leave it behind.
Okay.
But if you're like me, then I generally spend some hours after
Hmm.
hours just to work and get ahead of things. Or
Okay.
um, like my wife's birthday was yesterday,
Hmm.
so I got to spend time with her and just hang out with
Yeah.
her periodically throughout the day,
Hmm.
and just being able to do that was really cool. And
Yeah.
I think that's the joy about this type of job is that I think in IT in general you can have
Hmm.
a lot of flexibility, and
Right.
so I don't know many other jobs that actually get to do that, but I know that
Yeah.
this one's it's very flexible.
Okay. And are there any busy seasons with this job? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, so I would say it's their lighter season more than it's
Okay.
their busier season. Because the lightest season is in December timeframe, so like the latter
Okay.
end of the year.
Okay.
We're kind of restricted from deploying anything into production,
Okay.
so meaning that it goes live for the users to use.
Hmm.
Um, and the rest of the time frame is pretty much busy.
Okay. Amazing. And now, are there certain degrees or certifications that are truly required to become a UX designer?
I would not say that there's a degree that's needed, nor is there
Okay.
a certification.
Okay.
They are extremely helpful to have, but I will also say in a caveat that they are not needed in any regard.
Okay. Okay.
Experience is really what's going to get you through the door, and even more so, your communication skills. So being on LinkedIn, being able to
Okay.
portray yourself on this social platform, it
Hmm.
really does do a lot of work for you. So
Okay.
the amount of people that you know, that's really what's going to get you through the door, rather than actually having these certifications. But
Yeah.
they are a good help.
Okay. And so, other than communication skills, what are some other natural strengths that you think would make a good UX designer?
Yeah. One first and foremost would be just making sure that you focus solely on the problem. If
Okay.
you enjoy solving a problem and that's your goal, you're going to do amazing
Hmm.
at being a UX designer. If
Okay.
you are one that loves the solution and then try to understand the problem as you keep solutioning, it might work, but I personally would say that you might be a better developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we talked about Figma. Are there any other tools or technologies that you use as well?
Yeah, so I mentioned UI wizard, or however you pronounce it, it's
Oh,
UI
yeah.
wizard. So it's another tool that's kind of like Figma, except it
Okay.
has a lot of AI integration already for it. And so
Mm,
what it does is that it kind of does like a brief survey of like the beginning stages of your design.
okay.
And so
Okay.
it's like, this is what you're telling me you want
Hmm.
designed, this is how it looks like. And so it kind of puts
Mm,
it out in front of you. And so you
okay.
can either take it or change it or do something along those lines. So that's one thing. The other one is
Interesting.
Miro. That one is extremely helpful for it's kind of like FigJam, but it has more AI integration already built into it.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
you can use that one for being able to take surveys with customers or users
Mm,
and being able to understand them a little bit better and just get more feedback. That one already has AI built into that those surveys as well, so that way you can get a lot
okay.
more out of your surveys. So I think they even print out like or populate statistics for you, so that way
Oh,
you can
wow.
understand your stuff a little bit better.
Mm.
But obviously the other one is FigJam. So or Figma. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so now as a UX designer, what do you end up thinking about all day?
Climbing a mountain.
Great
I
answer.
I would love to be over there. No, what I think about every single day though is how I can enhance something for my users.
Hmm.
Like right now, the project that I'm working in is specifically for that. Like I'm helping out customer service reps that are inside of our company, and they deal a lot with calls that are either very quick and go straight to
Hmm.
voicemail, or they're able to collect money the way that they need to. And so my
Okay.
goal is to help try to make an application that's going to be helping them to be more efficient.
Hmm.
And um, right now they have to pivot between like five different screens every single call, and that's
Um,
way too much. So I'm trying to
yeah,
figure out how to lessen that and
right.
make it where all the data that they're usually using is put in front of them
Mm,
rather than spread out
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So now we want to give our listeners a little bit of advice.
Right.
So, what do you recommend that candidates that are interested in this type of job do to set themselves apart from other candidates?
Mm, yeah, be yourself.
Okay.
I I think that you have unique potential regardless of who you are.
Hmm.
You need to be welcoming to what you have experience of and be able to sell that. And the more and more that it is that you're able to share who you are, being able to be personable, be likable, I think that just more in itself, just you don't have to be a people's person, but
Okay.
definitely try to be a little bit more outside of yourself than what you normally are. I would say
Yeah.
probably that.
Okay.
UX design, you're not really going to be heads down. You are
Hmm.
going to be talking to a lot of people. You're going to be asking a lot of questions.
Hmm.
And if you're really wanting to get in this type of role, it's going to be one of those that you have to, as I mentioned before, make sure that you're focusing on the problem. And
Right.
a lot of times that's really what the interview process is going to be about, is focusing
Okay.
on how it is that you solve a problem rather than how it is that you design.
Right.
Design is just a piece of it. It's not
Hmm.
the largest portion of what it is that
Hmm.
you do. And so I would say that.
Okay, amazing. And so if someone wants to make a pivot from another career into this one, and if they don't have a traditional background for UX design, what's the top three things that you recommend they do?
Top three things. Um, One would be to get experience.
Okay.
So you don't have to be in a company in order to get
Hmm.
experience.
Hmm.
You can do your own research on how it is that other people have done it in the past, or
Okay.
you can even look up case studies. So there's
Hmm.
a lot of opportunities for that online. If you just do a Google search, you can
Yeah.
do UX design case studies, and that will
Hmm.
actually help you to understand how to go about the process and
Okay.
building up a portfolio. Um, Funny enough, I don't actually have one myself.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
wow.
I was able to manage to sell myself into the job that I have, but they were willing to take a stab at it, so I was
Yeah.
grateful and blessed for that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I would say that case studies, portfolio, and then the last one is just working on your interview skills.
Hmm. That's
That's
a
a
big
really
one.
huge
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So, what are some books or resources, maybe even programs that you recommend our listeners look into if they're interested in UX design?
So resources wise, like I've mentioned, is definitely jump on LinkedIn if you haven't
Hmm.
already. I would suggest highly doing that. I know that listening to podcasts is definitely a big one.
Yeah.
You can honestly just type in UX design and that
Hmm.
there's stuff that pops up a lot. Um, you can as well look at Medium. That's a website. Medium has a lot of UX designers on there, just pouring out all of the wisdom that they have, all the knowledge,
Hmm.
and just trying to educate the community as much as possible.
Okay.
But really, the biggest part is just jumping in the community. If you
Hmm.
really want to get more involved and know how to be a great designer or even just how to get into the field or whatever the case may
Hmm.
be, all of your questions, they'll all be asked inside of the community. So
Okay.
yeah, I would say focus on even doing that first and foremost before even jumping into books.
Okay. Amazing. And
Yeah.
now, if you could talk to your younger self when you were just starting off in your career, what advice would you give them?
Mm. I actually use this question a lot with teenagers. I would say that keep trying. A
Mhm.
lot of what I put on myself is a lot of pressure.
Okay.
And a lot of times I can think very lowly about what it is that I'm capable of doing.
Mhm.
And it's weird, but I think naturally we instinctively do that.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't because we are more than capable of doing a lot of things. And
Mhm.
we might not have the gifts of every single type of thing that we want to do, but like I'm not going to beat Usain Bolt inside of a, a sprint contest, but but I'm definitely going to try my best at what it is that I have a dream about.
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
if I wanted to be a pilot, then I would go try to be a pilot. But I think
Mhm.
overall, my biggest thing that I really enjoyed was being able to help people.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be inside of what is it like a nonprofit, for example, for a good while.
Mhm.
But my biggest thing now is that I just really want to help users and help them the best
Yeah.
way that I can with what skills that I have.
Yeah. Amazing. And finally, where can people reach out to you or where can they follow along with all of your work?
Yeah. So LinkedIn is huge.
Yeah, it
And I will
is.
I'm planning on creating a portfolio. So
Okay.
if that's a goal that someone wants to look at my portfolio and possibly even jump on there and help me get into another job or even just just try to contact me and connect. I'm always open for talking and hanging out.
Okay, amazing. All right. Well, Lane, thank you again for joining me on today's episode and for sharing everything about UX design with us. So, thank you.
Thanks, Miranda.
You just got one episode closer to learning about the world of jobs out there. To explore the rest of our career categories and find your best fit, go to jobdictionary.com to sign up for the beta users waitlist. Then subscribe here to find the next episodes coming out this week. And as always, drop us a comment, review, or message to let us know how we can better attune our episodes to your specific needs. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Threads, Pinterest, and wherever else you're on socials to go get our short, snappy preview reels that expose you to new job options every day. Because here at Job Dictionary, we believe your big aha moment can be just one scroll away. Go check it out and get out there. Cheers!